Hello, my friends. Jacob is here once again. Happy Sunday to you. I'm sorry that I'm not doing the old back alley walk, but it's so cold. It's a little chilly. It's a little chilly for that. Not to mention, we got the extra hour, right? The extra hour. It's just what we believe is an extra hour. But I have a little more time to come to you, and I got to tell you, with the days that's approaching, the big day that's coming up on the 3rd, this is an important message. This is one that everybody should really pay attention to. It's about judgment, okay? I get a lot of emails, and when I get these emails from some people, they seem to be very scared, and they say that the world is falling apart, and that, everything's going to blow up, and it's a terrible thing. But you got to understand something. That's not the reality. The reality is you're being showed a very, very small portion of what the reality is. Like, for example, if you're in a huge, huge area, and there's just, say like there's 1 or 2 blocks where people are going bananas, they're going to force feed you that image, and you're going to think the whole world is falling apart because that's the message that they're trying to relay to you. But that's not the truth. That's why judgment is so very important. Proper judgment, that is judgment, to judge things to be a certain way, to think properly. Jesus talked about this. It was a great lesson, and I think a lot of people miss the point. When he says, judge not lest ye shall be judged, and I know it's a Mandela effect. It doesn't really exist that way in our reality anymore, as they say. Judge not lest ye shall be judged, meaning a lot of people took it to mean that if you condemn people for doing wrong, if you condemn people for being bad, then you're going to be condemned for all the wrong that you did, and you're going to be condemned for all the bad that you did. But that's not what the lesson is here. In Matthew chapter 7, this is where we talk about judgment, okay? And this is a very freeing, a very liberating way of understanding what this scripture means. Now, what is judgment? What is judgment? Okay, well, judgment is to properly, thoroughly think about something, right? To see something, to analyze it, and then to decide this is the way it is, right? So when you go to the court and you got the judge there, they decide whether or not you're innocent or guilty, right? Because with the jury of the elected peers, and then the final say comes. Judgment, this is where it takes place. It takes place in your brain. This is where we judge things, right? The house of God, the temple of God, the great throne of judgment for those who have ears to hear it. This is where things are judged within us. To know things are the way they are or seem to be. To decide. It's almost like if you look at quantum theory, right? So you've heard about the double slit experiment where they shoot the particles against the wall, and they were so confused because it had like an endless possibility of where that particle could land. But when they measured it, once they decided to measure it, because they judged that it wouldn't be that way. They judged that if there are 2 slits and we're shooting particles, that against that wall in the back, you'd see a splatter pattern that looked like those 2 slits. But when they did the experiment and they didn't measure it, there was a wave. Meaning they deduced that our judgment has some effect on all of reality. Abracadabra, as they say, I think it means to create as I believe, or I believe and I create, or I create what I believe. When you spell something out, right? Spelling it out. It's a little bit of witchcraft going on there. That's what people would say. Words have power, but it isn't until those words are taken within you and that you make a conscious judgment of what those words mean that it becomes your reality. So, if you judge that the world is falling apart and you think everything's going to, the hell in a basket, guess what? That's going to be your judgment. You're going to be judged according to how you think. That's what this means. It doesn't mean if you look at somebody and they're doing wrong and you say, you are doing wrong, that God's going to be like, well, you're doing wrong for that. That's not what Christ is teaching here. He's teaching everybody. That's why the chapter's titled, Judging. Let me read this to you, chapter 7. Judge not that you be not judged. See, this is the thing. It's the next line. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. And with what measure you meet, it shall be measured to you again. It's like karma. whatever you put out, you're going to get back. Whatever you think about people, it's going to come back on you. Now, if you understand this, then you could literally change your reality in a righteous way, a right-thinking way, in a faithful way, as opposed to allowing everybody to dictate how you should judge. Because guess what? If you are being told, right? You're being told what to think. You're being told how to judge. This is the world. The world is terrible. The world is corrupt. People hate people based on whatever race they are or whatever faith they are. This is the way the world is. That's not the way the world is. There are small people that are lost. There's a small percentage of people that are hateful. There's a small percentage of very, very corrupt people in positions of authority. Sure. But just because they're sending that message to all of you doesn't mean that everybody's that way. It doesn't mean that everybody hates a person of a different faith. It doesn't mean that everybody hates a person of a different race. It doesn't mean that. Just because everybody's telling you that's the way the world is. If you judge the world to be that way, that's what you're going to get in return. Just like if you go to work, okay? Go to work and there's that one person who's always bumming you out, getting you all upset, and you judge that that person has it out for you. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to start manifesting in your life. You're going to start seeing all sorts of issues. You're going to start seeing that this person that you say, that one's out to get me, right? That one wants me gone. You're going to start seeing things that would kind of help you along with saying, aha, I told you so. How many people here have said things like, oh God, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I judged it to be that way and I got what I judged. This is a freeing message. It's an important message. Why are you looking at the mote in your brother's eye, but you don't consider the beam that's in your own? Like, why are you looking at other people and pointing out their problems, saying that's what's wrong? We shouldn't be looking at other people and pointing fingers and saying, you are this or you are that. Everybody has to work on this because the whole world has convinced you to be nonstop judging everybody the wrong way. Television is where it started, right? The media, now the internet. You have an algorithm that knows that if it bleeds, it leads. So what do you think you're going to be fed all the time? But is that reality? It's only reality if you judge it that way. That's why it's so important for us to put good stuff out there too. Good stuff. Now I know that it may not get all those retweets and everything else, and follow me on Twitter. If you're not going to get all those shares. Share the video if you think it's helpful. You're not going to get all that stuff if it's not something that's, just outrageous and, it's like, oh, I want to get that. I mean, what do you read in your feeds all the time? Why is everybody so upset? Why is everybody so scared? Because we're judging that that's the way the world is, but that's not the way the world is. That is a lie from the father of all lies. That I said was going to be cast into the earth, right? And that's down here, and it's making war because it doesn't want us free. It wants us slaves to our shame, to our fear. It wants to keep us down low in this lower realm as opposed to being free and climbing that ladder and getting to the truth of God who waits at the door. Christ is at the door. You knock, it's open for you. You seek and you find. The problem is, if you're too busy judging everything to be wrong, you're going to get it in return. We have to be careful with how we think. This is why it's so very important to judge properly, to judge righteously, not to just listen to the first negative thought that comes to your mind, because those thoughts that come to you, those ones that come to you and they say, oh, that person's out to get you, or oh, your husband doesn't love you, or your wife is going to step out on you, or your children are never going to get off drugs, or all of these thoughts, if you judge that to be true, it's going to be true. I just had a conversation with someone very, very dear and close to me where they were worried about one of their kids. And they said, oh, I'm thinking that they have a phobia, that they're a phobia to go out because of what's going on. And I said, well, don't tell the kid that. Don't tell your child that. If you start saying you're developing a phobia, and they judge that to be true, that's gonna happen. We have to speak blessings onto people. Our words have power. That's why the words, there's an S at the end. You put it in the front, it's a sword. It cuts both ways. Christ comes with a fiery sword, right? Coming in his mouth Think about that for a second. Words have power. They are a consuming fire. The truth is, if you hear this message about judgment, and if you judge not, otherwise you understand that if you judge the wrong way, you're going to get that in return. That word that was spoken to you becomes a sword of fire that burns the lie away. That no one's out to get you. Because the instant you stop thinking that somebody's out to get you, no one will be out to get you anymore, because you won't think it that way. Because, like I said earlier, our thoughts create. There's a scripture that says, out of the abundance of our heart, our words come, right? And whatever a man believes or perceives to be true, that he is. Isn't it time that we start judging better? Isn't it time we start seeking the truth no matter what the cost? Isn't it time? In that chapter, a little bit further, it says very clearly, ask and it'll be given, seek and you find, knock and the door is open. There's a reason he says that. And then he goes on to say, Jesus goes on to explain about God, right? Because everybody had the wrong idea about God. He goes on to explain, what father among you, if your child asks for bread, are you going to give him a stone? Or if he asks for an egg, are you going to give him a serpent? You, being evil, meaning ignorant, right? You don't know the truth. You're ignorant. You're walking around in improper judgment. You're thinking that the world is a terrible, terrible, horrible place, not understanding that the kingdom is here. The kingdom is now. That's the message Jesus said. Why are you waiting until the end? To Martha, when they were walking to Lazarus, Lazarus was his good friend. It was Martha and Mary. They were all upset because he was in the grave. And he said, what are you worried about? Though he's dead, if he hears me, he's going to live again. And Martha's like, I know he'll rise again on the last day. And he said, what do you mean the last day? I'm the resurrection and the life. Those who hear the truth of God, though they be dead, they are going to rise again into the truth. And they're going to start to live their life. Jesus was called the way, the truth, and the life. Where was the way to truly live your life put to death? The place of judgment. Golgotha, the place of the skull. It's time that we reconnect to the truth. It's time that we ask God, deliver me from my improper judgment. And we start judging properly, because that, my friends, is how this world is going to change. I promise you. And in the meantime, stop being scared. Don't worry so much. It's all going together for our good, for those that are called according to the promise of God. And I promise you, God has called all of you, even though if you don't think it, even if you don't think that you're worthy of it. You're just like me, okay? You just have to believe it. You have to stop judging that you're not. I love each and every one of you. I hope you do share it around, tell your friends. Hit the like button, subscribe, check for notifications. Remember, I'm here every week, and have the best day ever. I hope this little Sunday lesson has helped you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Jacob Israel. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share this channel around. If these shows have helped you, help Jacob to reach more any way you can, and have the best day ever.